My husband is a funeral photographer. When I was diagnosed with a terminal illness, I asked my husband to take a photo of me. He sneered and mocked. I only take pictures of dead people. Are you going to die? I nodded and replied seriously. Soon, but I have some requests for the memorial photo. Can you take it from a right angle? My right side looks better. It would be best if you could edit it a bit. Should I send you my beauty filter settings? Chapter 1. I turned my head to look at myself in the mirror. My face was thin, and my skin was pale. If it weren't for the approaching death, I would have almost forgotten that I used to be a girl who loved looking pretty. The doctor said I had at most 1 month to live. So if Fabien Joe was willing to take my memorial photo, I had some requests. He was even more annoyed when he heard what I said. His already impatient voice turned icy. If you're sick, get treatment. If it's incurable, die somewhere else. Even death couldn't win his forgiveness. My eyes suddenly turned red, and I felt an uncontrollable bitterness. I thought Fabien would say something nice when he heard I was dying. Out of the corner of my eye, I glanced at my daughter, Bess, who was still sitting at the dining table, staring at her cake without taking a bite. She had been looking forward to today's birthday for a long time. I suppressed my sobs and tried to keep my voice normal. There's one more thing. Today is Bess's birthday. She wants to wait for you to come home and take a family photo together. He clearly didn't want to remember what day it was. Since Bess was born, Fabien had refused to celebrate her birthday even once. There was a 10-second silence on the other end of the line. I have things to do. No photo. It was still a cold rejection. I clenched my hands and whispered, "This might be the last one." Beep beep beep. Before I could finish, the call was disconnected. I stood there holding my phone, tears streaming down uncontrollably. This might be the first and the last family photo we ever take. Chapter 2. A pair of soft little hands wiped away the tears from the corners of my eyes. Bess leaned in worriedly. Mommy, why are you crying? Is it because Bess wants Daddy to come back for the photo, and Daddy said no? Bess won't ask for it anymore. Don't cry, Mommy. I looked at my 5-year-old daughter. She was so cute and obedient. She rarely asked for anything, except this one time, because Fabien never appeared during her childhood. Her classmates at kindergarten said she didn't have a daddy. Childish words had caused harm to her young heart. She just wanted a family photo to prove she had a complete family. No matter what, I had to fulfill her wish, at least in the days when I'm no longer around. She wouldn't be discriminated against because of this. I forced a smile, picked up Bess, and kissed her. Daddy agreed. Mommy is crying because she's happy. You be good and wait at home. I'll go get Daddy back. Chapter 3. By the time I took a cab to Fabien's company, it had already started drizzling. I didn't bring an umbrella and was stopped by the security guard. Fabien's phone was also unreachable. I'm Fabien's wife. Can you send someone up to confirm with him? I explained in a disheveled state. Since Fabien started this job, I had only visited his company once. I was dragged out by him that time. The security guard remained silent, his sturdy body unmoving. Emma? 2 women walked out from inside, one of them looking at me with slight surprise. My heart skipped a beat. It was one of Fabien's colleagues. She gave me a somewhat awkward smile. Since the last time you left, Fabien instructed everyone not to let you in. If you want to see him, you need to make an appointment in advance. The light rain fell on me, bringing a bone-chilling cold. I wiped the water off my face, trying to hide my unease. I don't need an appointment. Please tell Fabien that I need to see him. A flash of disdain appeared in the woman's eyes. All right. Then wait here for a moment. She then instructed the security guard. Watch carefully. Don't let just anyone in. As she turned to leave, she began discussing with the person next to her without any concern. That's her. She's so shameless. Who knows what she did? Even her own husband doesn't want to deal with her. Chapter 4. I waited downstairs for a long time. The rain gradually intensified, and my thin clothes clung to my frail frame, billowing in the strong wind. My body couldn't withstand such torment. My temples throbbed, and my head felt like it was going to explode. My vision started to blur. Perhaps a second ago, I was wondering if the person I spoke to had not informed Fabien of my presence. But now, The look from upstairs made me understand. I looked up. Fabian was standing by the window on the third floor, indifferently observing everything below, even from a distance. I could imagine his expression. It must have been one of disgust and hatred. I sighed softly. I had hoped to at least have a proper conversation with Fabian, considering that I was dying. I hoped he wouldn't be so cruel to our daughter. After all, Bess would only have him as her only relative in the future. But I never expected that I wouldn't even get a chance to speak to him. I smiled self-deprecatingly, unable to endure the pain inside any longer. My legs giving way, and I stumbled. My vision blurred, and I felt disoriented. Falling to the ground now, splashing dirty rainwater, would make me a laughingstock. Chapter 5. Just as I was about to fall, a hand supported me. An umbrella appeared above my head. "Are you okay?" Jacob looked at me with concern. He was Bess's teacher and a longtime friend of mine. Sometimes, when I had to go to the hospital for checkups, he would take Bess home. He also took great care of Bess at kindergarten, to prevent him from thinking we were irresponsible parents who neglected our child. I had to tell him the truth about my illness. I had no strength left, feeling so miserable that cold sweat was breaking out on my forehead, and my lips were pale. The gaze from upstairs seemed to pierce through my back. When I looked up again, the person was no longer there. Probably didn't want to see me. Forget it. I should take my medicine first. Fortunately, I had brought it with me when I left home. I shook my head slightly and bent over to look for the medicine in my bag. Jacob realized I couldn't speak at the moment and patiently held the umbrella for me, explaining, "Today is Bess's birthday. I went to your house to give her a gift, and she said you went out without an umbrella and asked me to bring you one." Fabian had come downstairs without me noticing. He was holding an umbrella, standing not far from Jacob and me. His gaze fell on Jacob's hand supporting my shoulder, and a flash of hostility appeared in his eyes. "Well, you brought warmth right to my doorstep." Startled by him, my hand trembled, and the medicine I had just found fell to the ground. The cylindrical pill bottle rolled forward. Of course, it rolled to Fabian's feet. He looked down at the pill bottle and impatiently kicked it with the tip of his shoe. "If you're going to fake being sick, at least do it convincingly, acting like you're half dead and taking vitamins." I didn't know vitamins could cure diseases. Chapter 6. Because I didn't want Bess to overthink things if she saw the medicine, I replaced all the bottles with vitamin bottles. Fabian didn't know, but Jacob was well aware. He was somewhat angry, shoving the umbrella into my hand and walking up to Fabian after making sure I was steady. "Mr. Joe, she's sick and can't get wet. If you don't want me to bring warmth, then please fulfill your responsibilities as her husband." Fabian stared at him, his eyes cold and emotionless. After a few seconds of silence, he suddenly sneered, "Emma, oh Emma, you're still so good at putting on an act. Even like this, someone is willing to believe you." I stood under the umbrella, teetering in the rain, hearing his words. The blood drained from my face. My illness had come on fiercely, making it hard to diagnose. The first time it struck, I fell to the ground in pain, unable to get up, with blood covering my face. Bess was terrified and called Fabian using my phone. A child understands nothing, thinking that a lot of blood means death. "Daddy, Mommy is bleeding a lot. Please save her. Bess can't be without Mommy." Maybe it sounded too serious, like I was going to die any second. Fabian ran several red lights to get home, trembling as he picked me up, his eyes filled with tears. At that time, I was relieved, thinking he didn't completely hate me. I asked him if I died, could he stop hating Bess and take good care of her? He hugged me tightly, almost frantically. "Emma, I don't hate you. You can't die." But when we got to the hospital, the tests showed nothing significant. The doctor said it might just be nosebleeds caused by dryness. The pain in my head was unbearable, and I felt something more was wrong. Asking the doctor if further tests were needed, in Fabian's eyes, it was all an act. He thought I had deliberately made myself look this way, even colluding with Bess to deceive him. His voice was dark and harsh. "Enough. Your acting only makes me more disgusted with you, even if you really die somewhere. Don't tell me." I find it annoying. Chapter 7. He thought I was lying again. this time about needing a memorial photo. I blinked, trying to keep the tears from being too obvious. The heavy rain poured down as Fabian and Jacob stood off against each other. Suddenly, Fabian picked up the pill bottle from the ground and twisted off the cap. "Are you crazy?" Jacob was shocked, trying to reach out and stop him. Fabian dodged and poured all the pills onto the ground. The white pills dissolved in the rainwater, gradually being washed away. I stared blankly at his actions. A wrinkled pain gripped my heart, like a gaping wound bleeding uncontrollably. He seemed unaware of how excessive his actions were, ignoring Jacob, and walked toward me with the umbrella. He smiled, but it was malicious. "Aren't you looking for me? Let's go. If you die in such heavy rain, who will take your picture?" "I really don't want to." His words were like sharp knives, cutting deep into my flesh. I exhaled hot breath, trying to suppress the metallic taste of blood in my mouth. I returned the umbrella to Jacob. "Thank you, but I'm already soaked, and the umbrella is useless now." Jacob frowned, wanting to say something but hesitating. Fabian was already impatient, gripping my wrist tightly. His strength was so great that it felt like he might break my wrist. I winced in pain. He seemed to notice the thinness of my wrist. Pausing slightly, something seemed to click in his mind, a flash of realization in his eyes. He harshly shoved me into the car and slammed the door. "Emma, we haven't divorced yet, and you're seeing someone else? Making yourself look pitiful, hoping I would let you be together?" I slumped weakly in the seat. "No, he's Bess's teacher." "Ha," Fabian sneered. He seemed to say something else, but my head was spinning, and I didn't catch it. Probably more cold and harsh words. Nothing good ever came from his mouth. The car drove to the outskirts, getting farther and farther from home. The road became bumpier. "This isn't the way home. Bess is still waiting for me. Today is her birthday." I forced a few words out of my throat with difficulty. Fabian looked at me through the mirror, the hatred in his eyes chilling me to the bone. He said, "None of us deserve to be happy today." My heart tightened. I knew what he meant. The car was engulfed in silence. The heavy rain pounded the windows, creating an irritating noise, taking me back to that dark summer. Chapter 8. Fabian and I met in college. He was studying photography and always liked to carry his camera around, taking pictures. One night, I went out with some friends off campus and stayed out past the school curfew. My roommate messaged me saying there was a dorm inspection that night. Luckily, there was a 2-meter-high wall in the back of the school that students often climbed over without getting caught. I hurried back, timing it just right, and pushed off with my feet. As I leaped onto the wall, I heard a click, a flash of white light. I had only one thought in my mind. Oh no, I got caught. Startled, I lost my footing and missed grabbing the wall, falling straight down. Not only would I get caught and lose points, but I'd also get injured. Just when I was about to cry from despair, Fabian caught me from below. He fell to the ground with me on top of him, his camera rolling to the side. I rubbed my arm and stood up, finally seeing clearly. It wasn't that I got caught. I had been unknowingly photographed by some perverted guy. These days, people taking pictures under skirts were so brazen. He looked quite handsome and had a cold expression, but who knew he was so creepy inside? I crawled over and grabbed the camera, cursing, "You pervert." But when I saw the photo, I was completely stunned. In the moonlight, a girl leaped over the wall, her black hair flying, revealing the right half of her face. Her eyes sharp. It was an indescribable heroic sight. Fabian got up, dusted off his clothes, not angry, but rather blushing and apologizing. "I'm sorry. I just thought that moment was beautiful and wanted to capture it. I didn't mean to scare you." I realized I had misunderstood, but still righteously scolded him. "Taking photos of girls in the middle of the night. Where's your sense of justice and morality? As compensation, you have to take more pictures for me." And so, Fabian became my exclusive photographer. No matter where I went, he was always there with his camera, capturing my scenes. In his camera and eyes, there was only me. Our mutual understanding and love were as beautiful as a romantic drama. Chapter 9. After graduation, Fabian and I became financially stable, bought a house, and got married. For the 2 years we were married, he was always gentle and caring towards me. My parents divorced and neglected me, so he brought me into his family. Fabian's parents were wonderful. They never demanded anything and frequently brought me gifts and delicious food, treating me like their own daughter. Later, I became pregnant with Bess, and they moved in to take care of me. My constitution was weak, and the pregnancy was particularly torturous. I threw up everything I ate. A few nights before the due date, Fabian had to work late, saying that when he got back, he wanted to take a family photo to commemorate, but we never got that chance. Bess in my belly kept me awake, and I suddenly craved hot pot from a restaurant on the east side of town. Upon hearing this, Fabian's mother immediately grabbed his father and had him drive us there. We hadn't been out for more than 10 minutes when it started to pour. The windshield wipers squeaked as they worked quickly. It was hard to see the road. At the intersection, a truck suddenly came rushing out. The massive size difference sent our car flying several meters away. Fabian's mother reacted quickly, shielding me with her body. In the car accident that night, Fabian's father died on the spot, and his mother, who had protected me, was impaled by a long shard of glass in her chest. She didn't survive the emergency surgery. I was so traumatized that I went into premature labor. When Fabian received the call from the police and rushed to the hospital, he was met with 2 bodies covered with white sheets and a nurse saying, "My condolences." He said nothing, red-eyed as he handled his parents' affairs, personally preparing their memorial photos. Bess's cries pierced through the silence of the hospital room. Her birth, once eagerly awaited, now went unnoticed. My tears had already soaked the pillow. I blamed myself, feeling heartbroken and constantly thinking, if only I hadn't said I wanted that hot pot from the east side of town, none of this would have happened. I was the one who caused their deaths. I suffered from postpartum depression and attempted to take my own life several times. If it weren't for Bess, that small bundle, who would smile at me and grab my finger with her soft little hands. From the day Bess was born, Fabian began to deliberately avoid me. He couldn't face me or Bess. The man who once loved to take pictures of me no longer let me appear in his lens. He even changed jobs to specialize in taking memorial photos. At first, I tried to communicate and apologize, but he never responded, until he started coming home less and less. On Bess's first full month, I knelt and begged him to come home and see his child, crying hysterically, "If you need to vent, to hate, do it on me. Bess is just an innocent child. She can't be unloved from the moment she was born." Fabian, like a trapped beast, smashed everything around him, his bloodshot eyes bursting with deep-seated hatred for the first time. He, too, was hysterical, the veins on his forehead bulging. "What do you want me to do? Because of her birth, I lost my parents. How am I supposed to face you both? Do you want to drive me to death?" Chapter 10. After that, Fabian's resentment towards me and Bess grew deeper. Once a loving couple, we now cursed each other with the harshest words. I leaned against the car window, closing my eyes. My breathing was slow and weak. The road became increasingly difficult, the bumps making me feel nauseous. "We're here." Fabian's cold voice pulled me out of my memories. I opened my eyes and, upon seeing the outside, my pupils contracted. It was a cemetery. Fabian's parents were buried here. During the funeral, Fabian didn't let me participate. He said I, the murderer, was not qualified. Now, why did he bring me here? In an instant, fear, guilt, and endless remorse overwhelmed me. I trembled all over, my teeth chattering uncontrollably. "No, don't, please." Fabian ignored me, his eyes devoid of any affection. As he opened the car door and dragged me out, the sky was overcast, and I couldn't see the ground clearly. I almost stumbled. Fabian practically dragged me to his parents' graves. He released his grip, and I fell to my knees in front of their tombstones. My knees hit the stones hard. Fabian's voice mixed with the heavy rain above my head. "Didn't you want me to be with Bess on her birthday?" He paused. Then, like a demon, pronounced, "This rain is my parents' punishment for you. You kneel here and repent. When the rain stops, it means they have forgiven you." I tried to support myself with my hands, failing several times to stand up. Finally, I could only kneel before Fabian's parents' tombstones. I didn't dare to look up. Their memorial photos were on the tombstones, their black and white faces seeming as if they would come out and ask me any second. Why did you want to eat that hot pot? Why did you have to make trouble? We were killed because of you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's my fault. It's all my fault. I should be the one dead. I spoke hoarsely, my voice barely audible. Fabian squatted down, grabbed my hair, and forced me to look up. His face close to mine. The distance was very close, and I could hear his words clearly, one word at a time. The pain in my heart. You will repay 1,000 times over. Chapter 11. The pain from my scalp being pulled was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. I breathed rapidly, my lips moving without being able to form a word. It was me. I ruined everything. Bess could have had a happy home and a loving father. Fabian could have had a joyful family. But I didn't mean to. I didn't know it would rain that day. Didn't know a truck would come out at the intersection. The suppressed grief in my heart surged like a raging sea. In an instant, I broke down. I burst into tears, the hot tears seeming more plentiful than the rain, streaming down my face. Fabian was also soaked by the rain, watching me with cold indifference. After a long time, he seemed tired of everything in front of him, wanting to leave me there. The cemetery was remote, and at night, almost no cars passed by. Without medication to support me, in my current condition, I would probably die here alone. My brain buzzed, losing the ability to think. With only one thought remaining, Bess was still waiting for me at home. I couldn't die here. I reached out to grab Fabian's pant leg. My vision was blurry, and I missed several times. Don't go. My voice was hoarse, barely audible. There was no response. My nose felt hot, and a metallic taste rose in my throat, impossible to suppress. If I could, I would rather it was me who died. Why are you doing this to me? Fabian, let me atone, okay? I'm about to die. I'll go apologize to them. Drip. Something dripped on the ground, bright red and glaring. Chapter 12. I was bleeding again. This time, there was more blood than ever before. Maybe today, I would really atone. My phone was still in Fabian's car, and I couldn't even say goodbye to Bess. I leaned quietly against the tombstone, feeling the warmth leave my body. I didn't know how much time passed. Long enough that I almost fell asleep. Something cold covered my face, and someone was calling me, again and again, urgently, bewilderedly. Emmy, don't scare me. Fabian had returned. He carefully wiped the blood from my face, his hands trembling uncontrollably. I mechanically moved my eyes. The one who was about to die was me, yet he looked worse than I did. His panicked, shocked eyes clearly reflected my appearance. It was ugly, not at all pretty. Fabian took off his jacket and covered me with it, completely at a loss. Not knowing if he could touch me, he anxiously made a phone call, probably calling an ambulance. After hanging up, he ran to the car to get an umbrella. Holding the umbrella in one hand, he held my hand with the other. Two cold hands, generating no warmth. He didn't speak again, just gripping the umbrella handle tightly. In this environment, we coexisted peacefully for the first time. No arguments, no hatred, like a dream before death. So surreal it was frightening. I slowly lowered my head, no longer having the strength to look at him. I fell into darkness. Fabian called my name desperately. Don't sleep, please. Don't sleep. Emmy. Chapter 13. I seemed to have a dream. In the dream, after I died, Fabian continued to ignore everything. Bess was left alone at home, with no one to cook for her, no one to take her to school. A tiny girl, not even tall enough to reach the stove, stood on a stool to cook noodles. Too weak, she fell while scooping the noodles, tipping over the pot. Scalding hot water splashed all over her. Bess's fair little face turned red, tears falling like pearls from a broken necklace. Mommy, where are you? It hurts so much. Mommy, Mommy, I miss you so much. Didn't you promise to spend my birthday with me? I suddenly woke up, sitting up in a cold sweat. My vision swam. The 4 needle in the back of my hand and the strong smell of disinfectant reminded me I was still alive. "You're awake." Fabian sat next to me, his voice hoarse. It sounded like his throat was damaged, as if he hadn't had water in a long time. The sun was already up. Realizing I hadn't been home all night, I quickly asked, "Where is my phone?" I didn't know if Bess had eaten, if she was still waiting by that cake for Fabian and me. Sometimes Bess stayed home alone. I had installed a landline in her room for emergencies. Whenever something happened, she would call me. Fabian hesitated, not reaching for the phone. "Shouldn't you explain to me what's wrong with your health?" I was in a hurry and told the truth. "It's terminal. I have about a month left. That's why I asked you to take my memorial photo." His face turned ugly, and he threw the phone at me. "The test results will be out soon. You better not be lying." At this point, I didn't care if he believed me or not. Maybe only seeing me die would satisfy his hatred. The only thing I couldn't let go of was Bess. There were over 10 missed calls, all from Bess, and 2 from Jacob. I called Bess back, but no one answered. Jacob picked up quickly when I called him. He said Bess had gone out to look for me last night. Luckily, he had gone to deliver her birthday gift and found her. Now they were at a breakfast shop. "Thank you, Mr. Shen. I'll come pick up Bess soon." After hanging up, I tried to remove the 4 needle to leave. Fabian pressed me down. "Weren't you about to die just now? Now you're leaving without treatment to find someone else?" This man was strange. One moment, he didn't believe I was sick, wishing for my death. The next, he wanted me to stay in the hospital for treatment. I sighed. "I told you. It's terminal. There's no cure. I don't want to waste time." Chapter 14. Fabian stared at me without speaking. His face was dark and heavy, and his eyes were a bit red. Looking at his stubborn expression, my head started to ache again. My throat, after a few words, burned painfully. We hadn't gotten along for so long. I'd almost forgotten he was the kind of person who wouldn't believe until he saw the coffin. "I'm really worried about Bess. If you want to see the test results, you stay here and wait." Fabian grabbed my shoulders, his gaze sharp as a knife. "Is lying to me fun? This isn't the first time. Do you think I'll believe you? I'm not letting you go. You'll pay for your lies soon." I hadn't expected that even at this point. He still didn't believe me. I lowered my head, took a deep breath, and forced down the rising heat. "Yes, you've seen me like this before. Would a normal person bleed this much?" His grip on my shoulders tightened, even trembling a bit. I remembered the expression on Fabian's face when he saw me dying at the cemetery, filled with fear, confusion, and shock, spreading vividly across his face. He seemed to remember the similar incident from 6 months ago, mumbling dazedly, "Impossible, impossible." It was just dryness. Thud, thud, thud. Knocking interrupted his self-deception. The doctor came in with several test results, his expression serious. "Are you Emma? You should carry medication with you at all times in your condition. Otherwise, you could die suddenly." Fabian froze. The doctor continued speaking. "Looking at you, it seems you're aware of your condition." He paused, sighed, seemingly used to it, yet regretful about life. "So young. It's best to be hospitalized. You might live a bit longer." Chapter 15. The room fell into a deathly silence. Fabian seemed forced to confront the truth he had always avoided. His chest heaving violently, he kept repeating, "How could this be? How could this be?" I gave a calm smile. "How could it not be? All these years, you weren't the only one in pain. If it weren't for Bess, I wouldn't have been able to hold on. No one wants a tragedy to happen. If I could, I would rather have died in that car accident too." Pain flashed in his eyes, and he couldn't speak for a long time. I had no desire to rehash the past, nor any position to blame him. As I got up to leave, he grabbed my wrist once more. I took a deep breath and turned back, irritated. "Bess is our daughter. If you don't love her, you can't stop me from..." Before I could finish, I was stunned, because Fabian was crying, not silent tears, but like a child. His nose and eyes were red, and tears fell in large drops. He looked utterly helpless, his brows and eyes filled with sorrow and grievance. And he roared, "Why won't you let me keep hating you? You say Bess is what kept you going. But what about me? What can I use to keep going? Because of my wife and daughter. My parents died. Are you the murderer? Or am I the murderer for marrying you? You're going to die. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do?" I watched him quietly as he vented. Neither of us could let go of Fabian's parents' deaths. Fabian hated me, hated Bess, and also hated himself. During my postpartum depression, I was prescribed a lot of sleeping pills, some of which I kept in the bedside drawer. In less than a month, many were missing. Half were taken by me, and half by Fabian. Maybe hating me was his reason for living, but this mutual torment had to end. I sighed deeply and pulled my hand back. Then let me take that hatred with me to atone. Bess is your daughter. You are her only support. Fabian, please take care of our daughter. Will you? Chapter 16. Fabian eventually took me to find Bess. He didn't say a word, his eyes still bloodshot from lack of rest and the turmoil of emotions, making him look utterly worn out. Bess was sitting next to Jacob, and as soon as she saw me, she ran over and threw herself into my arms. "Mommy, are you sick? I was so worried about you." I had never told Bess about my illness, and Fabian wouldn't have either. I glanced at Jacob. He shook his head at me. Bess gently touched my face with her small hand, her grape-sized eyes clear and bright. "Mommy's face is very pale, but your eyes are red and sad. Teacher says people like that are sick." So, my illness was that obvious. Then why had Fabian still refused to believe me? I forced a weak smile, rubbing Bess's hand against my face. "Mommy is just very tired. Daddy is here. Didn't you always want to see Daddy?" Fabian stood off to the side, unmoving, his emotions complicated. Bess didn't show the excitement she had on her birthday, holding onto my neck and burying her head into me. "Mommy must be sad because of Daddy. I don't want Daddy anymore. Having just Mommy is enough for Bess." My Bess was always so smart. She understood everything. If her hand wasn't tightly gripping my clothes, I would have thought she didn't want to see Fabian. I gently patted her head. "All right. Mommy is really okay. Go play with Daddy. Mommy has something to talk about with Uncle Shin." Fabian probably hadn't figured out how to face Bess yet. Standing there motionless with a blank expression, I put Bess down, and she cautiously approached him. "Daddy, why didn't you want to come back and take pictures with Bess yesterday? The kids at kindergarten tease me, saying I don't have a daddy." She didn't know about the issues between Fabian and me. The grievances of the previous generation shouldn't involve the child. I understood that, and Fabian did too. When Bess saw Fabian wasn't speaking, she took out a drawing from her backpack. It depicted 3 people, 2 adults holding a child's hands in the middle. She held up the picture for Fabian to see, speaking sincerely. "It's okay if Daddy won't take pictures. Bess can draw our family portrait herself." My heart ached, and for the first time, I felt a wave of resentment toward Fabian. My daughter was such a good child. Sometimes at night, when I put her to bed, she would ask if being a little more obedient would mean she would be loved. She said she wanted to be the best behaved child so Daddy would love her and Mommy. Fabian looked at the drawing, his body suddenly trembling. His tall frame seemed to collapse all at once. After a long while, he knelt down, took the drawing, and hesitantly held Bess's hand. Chapter 17. Seeing the 2 of them getting along relatively well, I felt at ease and walked away. Jacob looked worried. "Are you okay?" I shook my head. "My days are numbered. Bess will have to be taken care of by Fabian from now on. I'll need you to help keep an eye on her." After all, Fabian had no experience taking care of a child. Jacob was the only person I could trust. He was patient with children, often going to teach in remote areas, and he was a good person. Hearing my words, his eyes suddenly turned red. His usually gentle eyes were tinged with sadness. "Have you and Fabian talked things out? You can't leave with regrets, can you?" But there were no misunderstandings between Fabian and me, just the loss of 2 close lives standing between us. I glanced at Fabian, who was already sitting with Bess, and spoke softly. "This is good enough. Right now. This was enough. I couldn't ask for more." Chapter 18. Fabian and Bess were getting along quite well, seeing Bess's smile growing more frequent. I felt at peace. Once the last bit of business was resolved, the strength that had been keeping me going suddenly left me. It was as if I aged decades in an instant, with no strength left to get out of bed. This morning, I had planned to take Bess to school, but I woke up late and didn't wake up until noon. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Fabian sitting by my bedside. I took Bess to school, he said. He looked seriously at my eyes and eyebrows. Why not try to get treatment? We both knew it was incurable. I looked at him quietly, saying nothing. After a long while, the glimmer of hope in his eyes faded, and he lowered his head slowly. Tears slid from the corners of his eyes, which he quickly wiped away. I heard his trembling voice. I was too cowardly, always blaming you for everything. If I had been kinder to you, maybe we wouldn't be here now. People say emotions drive the body. Doctors had mentioned that my illness was partly due to bad habits. I was weak and depressed after childbirth, and I attempted suicide multiple times without proper postnatal care, taking large amounts of medication several times. I was pulled back from the brink of death. If Fabian hadn't abandoned me during that time, but it's useless to think about it now. I sighed. Life doesn't offer many what-ifs, and I had no grounds to blame him. My chest felt tight, making it hard to breathe. I wanted to ask Fabian to get me a glass of water. When I looked up, I saw Bess standing at the door with her school bag on her back. I hurriedly put on a smile and tried to get out of bed to hug her. My legs suddenly gave way, and I nearly fell. Luckily, Fabian caught me. Usually, when I bumped into things, Bess would be very worried. This time, she acted as if she hadn't seen anything, hopping over to me with a bright face. "Mommy, we have an event at school this afternoon. Can you braid my hair?" I tried to move my fingers. I had no strength. I felt drained, tired, and exhausted. I thought for a moment and said to Fabian, "You braid Bess's hair." After all, he would have to do these things from now on. Unexpectedly, before Fabian could say anything, Bess suddenly shouted as if something had upset her. "I don't want to. I want Mommy to do it." These days, Bess seemed to have entered a rebellious phase. When I taught her to organize her backpack, she would throw everything around. When I taught her to put on socks by herself, she would deliberately run around barefoot. Now, asking Fabian to braid her hair, she even threw the comb. How could I leave in peace with her acting like this? I was both anxious and angry, not knowing what was wrong with Bess. Fabian, too, was facing Bess's tantrum for the first time, unsure of what to do. Bess kept shouting, her fair little face turning red. "Why is Mommy pushing me to Daddy? Don't you want Bess anymore? Daddy can't braid well. I want you to braid my hair. Only you. You child." The reprimand stuck in my throat. Seeing Bess's clingy and reluctant eyes, I suddenly understood everything. A 5-year-old child doesn't have a rebellious phase. She just sensed something was wrong and was clumsily trying to keep me. My chest ached, and tears welled up. Seeing my pained expression, Bess stopped shouting, sobbing as she hugged my leg. "Mommy, don't go. Don't leave me. Bess knows Mommy is sick. Bess won't cause trouble. Please. Mommy, don't go." Fabian's eyes turned red, unable to bear the scene, and he turned away awkwardly, his fists clenched tightly. I didn't know how to respond. At this moment, explaining the meaning of death to a child seemed too cruel. "Mommy isn't abandoning you. It's just, Mommy has to leave for a while." Bess stubbornly held on, not speaking. Her tears soaked a large part of my clothes. My mind went blank. The pain in my chest made it hard to breathe. I struggled to lift my hand to wipe her tears, feeling my own tears well up. When I saw Bess's wide eyes and deep fear, I realized it wasn't tears but blood that was flowing. I belatedly covered my nose, lowering my head to avoid scaring Bess. "Take her back to her room." Fabian pulled the struggling Bess away. Bess cried heart-wrenchingly, clutching my clothes. I comforted her. "Be good. I'll braid your hair when I get back." Chapter 19. I broke my promise to Bess again. The first time, I said I would bring Fabian home to celebrate his birthday with him. The second time, I promised to come back and braid her hair. On the way to the hospital, Fabian drove very fast. He tried to comfort me while keeping his eyes on the road. An anxious driver can't drive well. When the accident happened, countless images flashed through my mind. Bess's smile. Fabian kneeling to propose to me. Fabian's parents protecting me. They all shattered into pieces, exploding before my eyes. Some pieces stabbed into my eyes, some into my back. But this time, at least, I protected Fabian with my last bit of strength. I shielded Fabian with my body. Fabian's eyes were bloodshot as he screamed desperately. In the midst of the chaos, I felt as if I had returned to the day Bess was born. No accidents, no tragedies. A tiny bundle with a loud cry. Fabian, standing outside the delivery room, sighed with relief and smiled. Thank you, my love. I love you, and I love our daughter. Fabian's parents looked at Bess, their smiles kind. We were a happy family. Extra story 1. Emma died. On the way to the hospital, Fabian drove too fast and got into an accident. With her last bit of strength, Emma protected him, letting the shattered car glass cut her to pieces. Despite Fabian dragging his injured leg and rushing her to the hospital as quickly as he could, it was too late. Fabian went mad, refusing to leave her body. Whenever medical staff tried to pull him away, he would shout at them to leave. He kept mumbling, "We can't be separated. We're husband and wife. We can't be separated." Anyone who approached him was driven away. It went on until nightfall. Bess called. She asked Fabian when Mommy would come home to braid her hair. Fabian was silent for a long time, so long that Bess started to cry on the other end of the line. It's okay. Bess is very good and won't bother Mommy. Actually, Bess has known how to braid her hair for a long time. I just wanted to be closer to Mommy. Lately, Mommy has always seemed like she wanted to leave me. Extra story 2. 48 hours after Emma's death, Fabian still refused to deal with it. A wife who died protecting her husband in a car accident. Such a touching story quickly made headlines after being captured by reporters. Jacob saw the news too. He tried calling Emma first, and when she didn't answer, he went to find Bess. Bess hadn't eaten much, and she was starving, rummaging through the fridge for bread. Upon learning that Emma and Fabian hadn't been home for over a day, Jacob took Bess out for breakfast and then brought her back home before heading to the hospital to find Fabian. Seeing Fabian, Jacob almost didn't recognize him. A few days ago, he was meticulously groomed. Now he was in a foul-smelling hospital room, disheveled and with dark circles under his eyes, like a mentally unstable madman. Fabian also saw Jacob, but he ignored him, just moving closer to the hospital bed for comfort. Jacob couldn't stand to see him like this. Feeling a mix of sorrow and anger, he went up to Fabian, grabbed his collar, and punched him hard in the face. Fabian seemed to have no sense of pain, not reacting at all. He mechanically turned his eyes, finished hitting and let go. I want to be with my wife. Jacob dragged him further away. Fabian started to struggle, but he hadn't eaten, and his leg was injured, so he was no match for Jacob. He was quickly beaten down like a dead dog lying on the ground. Fabian didn't understand. Was this man in love with Emma, blaming him for Emma's death and venting his anger? But Emma was always his. Fabian grinned, a hideous smile. Jacob frowned, his voice cold, pushing Fabian into despair. Fabian, you're a selfish, cowardly waste. Because of one accident, you blamed everything on Emma, abandoning your wife and child for years. Do you know how hard it was for Emma to take care of a child while suffering from postpartum depression? You ignored her, and now Emma is gone. Do you want her to rest in peace or not? Bess is your daughter. She has only you left. Look at what you're doing. These words were like a bucket of cold water poured over Fabian, instantly sobering him. Fabian clutched his ears in pain, curling up on the ground. Was he a coward? After his parents' accident, he had always been avoiding it, even knowing it wasn't Emma and Bess's fault, but he had tried to let it go. Even seeing a psychologist, the doctor said he had PTSD, avoiding anything related to that incident. He had always known how hard it was for Emma. He had seen Emma cry while feeding the baby, seen the scars on her arms from cutting. Why? Why did he do those awful things? He still had Bess. Emma entrusted Bess to him, but he left Bess alone at home. Jacob kept talking, but Fabian couldn't hear him anymore. He wished he could just die right there. Extra Story 3. Fabian eventually handled Emma's funeral himself. While going through her things, he found a photo under Emma's pillow. It was the one he had taken of her on the day they first met. Half of her right face showing. A beautiful, vibrant young girl. When did such a bright person become so pale and weak? He suddenly remembered. Emma had called him. She had asked him to take a memorial photo. From the right angle. And what did he say? Fabian felt the small cracks in his heart widening bit by bit, gradually becoming irreparable, causing him unbearable pain. Daddy, is Mommy dead? The voice from behind made him freeze. Bess stood at the door holding her drawing of their family portrait, staring straight at Fabian. The news said Mommy died protecting you. I asked the teacher. And dying means a person completely disappears from this world. Mommy disappeared because of you. And she can't be with Bess anymore, right? Fabian shuddered violently, feeling cold, pain, and an unknown fear spread through his body. He looked into Bess's clear eyes and saw something he was all too familiar with. The same emotion that had appeared in his own eyes many times. Hatred. Bess held up the drawing and slowly tore off the part with him in it, leaving only the part with Emma holding her. She said, I hate Daddy. Fabian stumbled forward to hug her, but she dodged him. It was only then that he realized. Maybe at this moment, he had become another Emma, and he finally understood just how terribly wrong he had been.